I grew up with a bedtime that wasn't about sleep. It was about hiding. 9 o'clock, sharp-a-daddy. Lights off. Shoes on. No questions asked. My mother called it our game, which is a pretty word for a rule that feels like a fire drill wrapped in a lullaby. We didn't play in the house. We played at the park. The big one with sycamore trees that look older than the town itself. She'd count down from 100 in a low voice and I'd run. Not for fun, for distance. The grass would catch my knees. The dirt would learn my breathing pattern. And the trees, they pretended they didn't see me. She told me the rules early and she never changed them. Rule 1. Don't answer when I call. Even if I sound scared. Even if I promise candy. Even if I say I'm hurt. Rule 2. Don't move when you hear me behind you. Not for 10 minutes. Not for 20. Not for anything. Rule 3. Don't come out at 20 minutes. Not anymore. Not since the day I tell you. I didn't understand that last line when I was 9. I understand it now. Too late to be useful, and just in time to be cruel. I was a competitive kid, so I hid like winning mattered. Face down in low shrubs, tangled in roots, up in branches with my belt looped around a limb so I wouldn't slip. My mother still found me. Always. After 3 passes by my hiding spot, with her voice doing a performance of grief. Come out, Clara. Please come out. I'm cold. My name isn't Clara, but the sound of it shaped my breathing as a kid, so sometimes I think I borrowed it for the way it trembles at the end. She'd say home like it was a place with a lock only I could open. And I'd dig my fingers into the dirt and count. 1, 2, until the counting became a heartbeat and the heartbeat became a map. If I broke, if I crawled out, if I believed her voice instead of her rules, she'd go still like a picture and grab me by the wrist, drag me to the car, silent all the way, like punishment could pass for safety if you did it under a seatbelt. I learned not to break. You should know, other families weren't in the park at 9. That didn't make ours special. It made us obedient. The night that changed the rules, my father came back. He wasn't a mystery. The word mystery would have given him a silhouette. He was an absence with shoes. I had met him twice, the kind of twice that feels like a rumor you print out and keep in a drawer. He stood in our kitchen with his shoulders hunched like he was trying to be shorter than the light. He had the kind of smile you see in old yearbooks, wide and blank, like the emotion is a secret between the teeth. He talked about work that wasn't any job I've ever had to explain on a form. Mom watched him like a person watches a pot that never boils. At 8:55, she said, "Get your shoes." He said, "Why are we going out this late?" She said, "Fresh air." He said, "I like her when she's active." I didn't know what that meant. I knew I didn't like the part where he liked it. We drove to the park and it had the same face it always had. That's the trick with places. They don't change when you need them to. Mom pointed toward the sycamore she always caught me behind. "These trees get old, then they die," she said. "Sometimes they die standing up, too stubborn to fall. The disease moves slow. So slow you can lose years to it without noticing." I nodded like kids nod when adults narrate nature to keep from narrating themselves. Then I said I saw a squirrel and did the thing we rehearsed. I peeled off toward the tree and then cut left behind the low hill. I hid in bushes that smell like sick mint, the kind that holds its breath for you, and I went into my stillness. I heard their voices cross and recross the grass. The first time through they sounded like parents, like a picture of parents arguing near a picnic table. "Come out, sweetheart. We can go home. Honey, it's dark. We'll help you." Then the voices put their masks down. "Where are you? Enough. Get up." I pressed my face deeper into the leaves and ran the count in my head. Not to 20. Not anymore. To a number I didn't love. 37. Then 41. Then 53. Numbers with elbows. They stopped speaking. Silence is a sound you can't unhear. It has edges. It has weight. It takes up seats. A stick broke behind me. The wrong behind. The kind you don't prepare for. My body begged me to turn. My mother's rule sat on my spine like a hand. "Clara," the voice said, And the name didn't come from a mouth. It came from a place that likes mouths. Come out. My legs hurt. I want to go home. Silence again. Then the same voice from much farther away. As if someone had picked the park up and tilted it. Clara, I'm getting tired. Silence, then closer. I know where you are. Silence, and the whisper of leaves having a discussion. I will skin you, the voice said calmly, like it was reciting directions. I will start with your arms, and you will cry. And it will be boring, so I will use the other arm. I didn't breathe for a whole number. Numbers don't behave when you don't breathe. They crowd. They repeat. They forget. I stayed until morning. Until other kids made the park safe by inventing arguments about swings and turns. Then I slipped out of the shrubs and walked home with twigs in my hair like I was trying to pass for a nest. Mom was in the kitchen with a dish towel that had learned how to be a flag. She hugged me like she was checking for bones. We didn't talk about Dad. We didn't talk about the voice. We ate toast and watched a sitcom from a decade we had no business claiming. I grew up anyway. You can outgrow rules. You can't outgrow what trained you. Years passed. Jobs moved me. Love taught me how to pack. I took the game with me. Nine. The part where you notice what time thinks of you. And then, at noon on a blue Tuesday, my bathroom door became a loop. It was so dumb I didn't clock it at first. I pushed the handle down, opened into my landing, saw the bedroom door, the stairs, the little laundry closet that inhales socks. I stepped through and blinked, and I was inside the bathroom staring at a shut door. Do it again, my brain said. The way it says replay on videos it can't admit hurt. I did it again. Same result. The door opened to my life and then shut to my face. I keep my phone in the bathroom when I shower. Habit. Single woman. Just in case. I called my mom because that's what your hand does before you decide whether it's a good idea. She answered out of breath like she'd been hurrying for a long time. I'm stuck, I said, and told her the dumb version. The version where doors misbehave and you feel silly because you believe them. She said locks break. She said she'd drive over. She said 15 minutes like it was a spell. I texted her while I watched the door I had already opened. She texted back from my landing asking why I wouldn't answer when she called my name. I told her I couldn't hear her voice. She said she could hear me talking to myself. She unscrewed the handle from her side. I didn't see any screws. She looked through the hole where a lock should be and saw her daughter's bathroom emptier than an alibi. I looked at the handle on my side and watched it be solid. I tried the window. It shouldn't have mattered. It mattered like everything does when it shouldn't. The blind snapped up like a scold. The light outside was wrong for noon. The air outside was wrong for August. And the street wore a color a camera would call a mistake. I didn't climb out. I didn't even fit my shoulder through. I just looked down, and then the window was shut. The blind was down. The plaster dust was back in my mouth as if I'd licked the wall. I stood in the far corner and let the tile tell me if I existed. Mom texted a photo of my bathroom from the landing. The angle that makes the mirror into a second door. No me. Just a towel too clean for how I'm living. A countertop that thinks clutter means you're alive. The tiny plant that refuses to die because it has an audience. I typed I'm here and my phone autocorrected it to I'm late. The thing about late is... door. It's a position. It's a place where doors don't lean the same. I stopped trying to leave and started trying to count. I counted the silence between the fan and the building's heartbeat. I counted how long the light at the edge of the blind took to change its mind. I counted the time between the text and the next text and the absence of typing bubbles when someone is angry. My battery slid down like a kid on stairs they shouldn't climb. 20, then 14, then 1. There's a new kind of prayer for people who watch percentages. It sounds like bargaining, but it isn't. Before it died, I called my mother one more time. She didn't answer. Then my phone made a sound I hadn't assigned to anyone. A rumble, soft, like a subway deciding whether a city deserves it. The call connected without ringing. You learn the rules, she said. Her voice wasn't on the other side of the door. It was in the tile. It was in the spot where the shower curtains cling to your calf like a toddler, just before you notice the air is cold. "Don't answer when I call," she said, in the voice she used when I was 9. "Even when I'm scared, even when I sound like your comfort, even when I tell you the door is open." I stood very still and listened for my heartbeat. It hadn't left. It was just tired of reporting. At 9 minutes past the hour, the door opened again. Into the same landing, the same staircase, the same hall light trying to be kind. And for the first time since noon, I felt the air on my teeth. I did not step through. I let it breathe at me like a stranger who wants to sell me the better version of myself. The door swung shut with the care doors show when they think they're doing you a favor. At 19 past, it opened again. Not all the way. Like a hand waving you across a road it doesn't own. I watched it. I pretended to be furniture. I waited for 29, then 39, then 49. The hours that don't matter to anyone except people who know schedules are just opinions. At 59, with my phone at 1%, with my mother a rumor in the plumbing, with the window pretending it had never met me. Gah! I put my palm on the door and felt it cool. I said my name, not out loud, in the way you say your name when you're trying to convince a mirror. Then, I said a different name, the one my mother taught me by accident, the one the voice likes, the one that tells time you have other choices. Clara, I said in my head, and the door opened into a landing where the air felt like it had been thrown. I stepped through. I didn't arrive in my landing. I arrived in the version of it where everything is 1 inch to the left, and the light takes a little too long to understand what it's hitting. The door behind me closed and stayed closed, because I didn't look back to watch it win. The house was quiet, like quiet earns money here. The bed held the shape of someone's body like a good lie. The hallway smelled like oranges the way a memory wears perfume at court. I walked to the front door, and the front door was not a door. It was a picture of a door. It was a witness statement about a door. It was a thing that meant exit but refused to be it. I touched the deadbolt and it felt like a mouth saying, I didn't try to leave that way. I walked to the bathroom I had left and stood at the threshold and looked at my own mirror and profile. The person in it wasn't me. She was the girl who learned to hold still so well the trees felt bad for her. She was 9 and 30 at once. She had a leaf in her hair she couldn't feel, and gums that ached from clenching. I lifted my hand. She didn't. I didn't move. She did. That's when the rules changed again. The door at the far end of the hall opened at 9:27. Not my door. The one to the stairwell we never use because the steps are too steep and the handrail bites. A sound blew in that wasn't a draft. It was counting. Wrong. Out of order. The way you count when you're doing it in a language you don't speak. I said Mom, not out loud. The way I did when the park put its breath on the ground. The counting stopped. The door stayed open. The light leaned into the hallway like it was trying to overhear. I remembered the page my mother kept in her voice. Don't answer when I call. Even when I am the one who raised you. Even when you need to know I'm real. Even when the number feels like a rope you could climb. I stood still until my calves burned and my knees told me they were underpaid. Then I moved one step. Wrong. Not forward. Not back. The way you step in a dream when the room slides a little, and you don't want to spill. The counting started again, somewhere else, and the stairwell door shut like a mouth deciding to behave. It's hard to tell anyone what happened the week after that because nothing did, and also everything did. The bathroom looped for me at predictable hours that weren't on a clock. The window learned the trick where it can be open and closed depending on who needs the story to work. The front door never stopped being a statement about responsibility. I learned to eat at wrong times so hunger would lose track of me. I learned that if you hum 2 notes almost the same, the building will argue with itself and you can step through arguments the way you step through curtains. I learned that the first time you don't answer the voice that owns your name, it's angry, and the second time it's amused, and the third time it's bored, and boredom is better than hunger. On Friday, my mother's car appeared in my driveway twice. Once wrong, once right. The wrong one had the stickers we peeled off last year because they embarrassed her. The right one had a coffee stain on the driver's door I'd never ask about because marriage is what you keep to yourself. She texted me a photo from my porch with the welcome mat crooked. I texted her one back from my hallway with the same mat straight. She sent me a voice note where she said my name the way emergency rooms do. Flat, practiced, asking permission to be sorry. I didn't play it. At 9 p.m. sharp, the exact minute my childhood came home, the stairwell door opened again and stayed open long enough to learn my breath. I took the index card I keep in my pocket with my small rules written in ink. Miss one stair. Unplug one clock. Leave one lamp on in an empty room. Breathe on the half beat when the house breathes on the whole. And I tore it in half, and then in half again, and put it on the floor like confetti at a celebration for people who hate parties. Then I walked down the stairs that bite. At the bottom, the building was not a building. It was the place where buildings agreed to be creatures after midnight. The hallway bent like a spine. The vending machine lights glowed like eyes that didn't evolve for seeing. The exit sign spelled the word, but meant the opposite. The door there wasn't on any blueprint. You don't need blueprints when you have rules. I knocked on it the way children do when they don't know they're asking permission. It opened. I didn't step through. I waited for the counting. When it didn't come, I stepped sideways, the wrong step, the one that makes a sound like someone sharpening a pencil in another room. The door lost interest and pretended to be a wall. I sat on the floor with my back to the shape of a radiator and I whispered what I know. Don't answer when it sounds like love, even when it knows you'll laugh. Don't move when it breathes on your neck, even when your neck forgets it belongs to you. Don't come out at 20 minutes, wait for 19. Wait for 29. Wait for the number that makes your blood disagree. It isn't a prayer. It's a list. And lists are cheap magic. The door opened again, very slowly, like it thought I might be fooled by manners. I thought about the park, about Mom's voice walking the grass, about Dad's smile like a brochure for a life we rejected, about the words that weren't a language, but still counted as math. I thought about the second story I read online once. The person in the bathroom writing while their battery died, telling strangers that a door can mean no and yes in the same hour, that a window can learn your shoulders, that the blinds want to be witnesses. I thought about the way that post ended with not a cliffhanger but a cliff. I stood and let the door be as open as it wanted. I said, I'm not coming out. And I didn't. Not yet. I'm telling you this because time likes to be watched, and if you watch me, maybe it will have to count slower. If you have a door that takes you back into the same room, don't argue with it. Let it be stupid. Let it think it's clever. Wait until the hour is wrong. Wait until the hums in the walls disagree. Step when they're busy. If you have a parent who loved you with rules, don't forgive them yet. Don't blame them yet. Understand they met a schedule before you did, and decided they liked you better than agreement. If someone outside your door says your name like a promise, count. If they say it like a demand, count longer. And if the stairwell opens at 9, tie your shoes. Because sometimes the game is a map. And sometimes the map is the only reason you get to be late. I didn't leave town. I learned the building instead. Every house has a grammar. The way doors decide meaning. The cadence of pipes. The timing of appliances that pretend they aren't in a choir. Once you hear it, you can't unhear it. At 9 p.m.? Exactly. The stairwell that bites sighed like it had waited all day to remember. It was a throat. The bathroom door behaved like a polite liar. The window thought about me the way an ex does when they're bored. I started a notebook. Not a list. Lists are contracts. This was a field journal for things that don't like being measured. 9:01. Hall light flicker. 9:03. Neighbor's TV laughs off beat. 9:05. A shoe prints itself in dust on the third stair down. The neighbors mattered more than the lights. Mrs. Reynolds in 3B drags her dining chair exactly 6 inches at 9:15 every night. Then pushes it back. Then goes still as if she's hiding under the table with a hand over her mouth. The chair marks her on my ledger the way I imagine I mark hers. The college kids in 2D clap once at 9:30. Too clean. Like an app clapped for them. I thought party. Then I heard it again the next night. Same time, same sound. A sound that made the hallway pay attention. Across from me. Odd. A man I never see drops 3 coins on a plate at 9:29. Metal on ceramic. Measured like apologies. I sit on the floor with my ear to the door and count the rings. He always stops at 7. He always sighs on the 8th. Once you notice these things, life looks deliberate. That's worse than random. Random allows accidents. Deliberate means someone is finishing your sentences. On the 4th night after the bathroom loop, a note slid under my door. It wasn't paper. It felt a little like dry leaves, and a little like a receipt from a store that doesn't exist. The handwriting was my mother's, and entirely not hers. 9 is when the neighborhood forgets. If you want to be remembered, be wrong. If you want to survive, be late. If you want out, walk the quiet. No. I turned it over and found nothing. I held it to the light and found a watermark that moved when I breathed. I put it in my notebook and the binding felt heavier, like the book had eaten. I texted Mom, because I'm still a daughter even when the rules say don't be. She replied with a photo of the sycamore in the park. The trunk looked like a thigh with old scars. "Do you still play?" she wrote. I wrote back, "I never stop." She sent a pin. 9 o'clock. I didn't want to go. I went. The park had the same face it always had. The air off the river smelled like coins. The playground glowed with that sodium light that makes children look historical. My mother stood by the bench where we once argued about whether mud is a souvenir or a mess. She was wrapped in a coat that belonged to a winter we hadn't earned yet. She didn't hug me. She gave me the rules again like the rules were blood pressure meds. Don't answer if I call, even if I sound like myself. Don't ask questions after. The answers want you. If you hear your father, leave the park like a stranger. I said, "I'm not 9. She said, "Neither am I, and it doesn't seem to matter." He came the way bad weather comes. A change in the weight of the air. A new color that pretends it's old. A smile anyone could buy. He wore a jacket I've seen on men who think they'll always be the main character. He walked like the ground owed him interest. When he said my name, it didn't sound like me. It sounded like a name tag for a job I hadn't realized I held. "We're still playing games," he said. Like you'd say, "Still watching those shows." He looked at my mother like she was a sweater he'd lent out. He looked through me like I was a doorway at a store he liked better. "Let's not," he added, and grinned. Mom didn't look at him. She looked at the tree and said something about fungus. I told myself not to listen. I told my legs to learn from the past. We split like choreography. She toward the bench. Me toward the low hill where childhood lives in the dirt. Hide and seek at 30 is a different sport. Your knees complain. Your breath knows rent is due tomorrow. Your memory is a roommate who doesn't label leftovers. I laid myself in the shrubs and felt the park put its hand on my head. I counted numbers with elbows. 11, 13, 21, 30. I counted until counting felt like chewing. He didn't call for me. My mother did, twice. Once right behind me and once by the parking lot, her voice doing the show business version of panic. Then something else spoke in a register I don't know how to describe without making you curious. And curiosity is a leash. It said, "Come out, Clara," and the leaves near my ear quivered like they recognized their name too. I stayed. 10 minutes slid into 20 and back again. Time gets drunk in parks. It forgets who it came with. Then I heard it. A small, stifled sound. You only know if you've heard it before. Not pain. Not fear. The memory of both. My mother, crying. Not the performance. Not the practice. The real one that happens in cars, in grocery store parking lots, in cooling kitchens. Don't answer. Don't answer. Don't. The body is a traitor. It wants to be useful. It wants to be good. It wants to stand up for family. I turned my head. The bushes told on me. The dirt held my breath and offered it to the night like a gift. Leaves parted where leaves shouldn't, and my father's face assembled itself the way origami remembers being paper. The grin was patient. The eyes were a color that doesn't have a word on paint chips. "You learn to be still," he said. and the pride in his voice was the cruelest part. I didn't run. I didn't speak. I let my eyes move like a deer's. Sideways. Barely. Toward the path beyond him, where the light from the street made a shallow pond. A woman stood there. Mrs. Reynolds, 3B Dieter, the chair dragger, the 6-inch ritualist. She had her hands in her pockets like the night owed her change. She looked at me and then at him, and then at my mother on the bench, who was making sobbing shapes without sound. And she shook her head once like a metronome taking attendance. He looked over his shoulder, and the absence of a person where he expected a person made his grin go thin. "I don't love interruptions," he said to nobody in particular. Mrs. Reynolds dragged her foot 6 inches and back. He flinched like the motion had rules attached. And in that sliver, in that paper-thin uninterest, I decided to be wrong. I didn't bolt for the car. I didn't crawl deeper into leaves. I rolled sideways into the open and stood into whatever the night thought I should be, and I walked. Past him. Past my mother. Past the bench where we had done love badly. Past the trash can with the New City logo. Onto the sidewalk where the lamps remembered me from years ago. He didn't follow. Mrs. Reynolds did not watch. The park returned to its regularly scheduled darkness. When I reached the corner, I heard my mother's voice. Not near. Inside. The tile voice. The plumbing voice. The one that remembers showers. Saying good girl, like 2 words could be a tourniquet. I didn't look back. I didn't look until I was 3 blocks away where the hardware store sign always blinks out the H, so it reads hardware like a dare. The night behaved after that. The clocks minded their business. The stairs did not bite. I went to sleep on top of the blanket like a person who trusts oxygen. In the morning, a white envelope was taped to my door. Inside, a sheet of paper with lines so faint they could have been veins. Typed at the top in a font that shouldn't exist because it has too much patience. Tenants Association meeting, 9:00 p.m., laundry room. Bring a timer. Wear soft shoes. Do not say your name. Do not clap on the downbeat. I went because I joined clubs now, I guess. The laundry room smelled like warm pennies and lemon that stopped trying. 6 of us sat on detergent buckets and folding tables. Mrs. Reynolds, the coin man from across the hall, the college kids, a night nurse who lives in 1A and looks at people like they're charts, a teenager with a chipped black manicure who kept bouncing her knee as if movement were oxygen. No one introduced themselves. We nodded like long-time listeners at a support group for people who think they're hallucinating in the same style. The night nurse spoke first. "We don't stop it," she said, in the tone you use when you're giving the right dose. "We make it work for us. We lay decoys. We push the beat. We gum the gears." The coin man cleared his throat. "We don't talk about the door," he said, "so it doesn't get cocky." Mrs. Reynolds slid a small metronome across the table. "We meet to set a drift," she said. "If the building is a clock, every night we nudge it, so it loses a second, and then another. We do it because it costs them time, and we like that." The teenager laughed. Quick and mean the way you laugh when you're in on the secret that hurts you. "Also because it keeps the bathroom sane," she added. "Mostly." I asked the obvious. "Who are they?" The college kid with kind eyes and a sweatshirt that makes him look younger than his bones scratched his neck. "Depends on who you ask," he said. "Old names like the ones your grandma kept on a shelf. New names like the ones your browser warnings don't like. I call them the keepers because that's what they do. They keep the time. They keep the roots. They keep the receipts we don't remember agreeing to." Mrs. Reynolds set the metronome to a speed that made my breathing feel like a mistake. "We're not a cult," she said. "We're a clog." I learned the ritual quickly because ritual is just organized hope. At 9, we all clicked our timers on. Not synchronized. Never synchronized. Staggered by seconds we picked from memories we hated. We tied shoelaces in small bows that decided to be knots. We flicked the lights in the laundry room not to a beat, but to an argument. We folded one towel wrong on purpose. We cursed when we should have prayed, and we prayed when we should have cursed. We made the building late. It worked the way you can say something worked without understanding physics. The hall lights fell out of step with the stairwell bite. The vending machine sighed at 9:27 instead of 9:25. The bathroom door at my place opened to the landing on the third try, not the first, and the window forgot what closed meant for a shining, stupid minute. I almost climbed out. I didn't, because my mother raised me to outwait hunger. On Saturday, the reverse bathroom started. The door opened, and I stepped into my landing, and turned left, and stepped into my bathroom again. Even though my floor plan does not allow that. Even though that is not how architecture behaves. I turned back and my hall was still there, and also my mirror. And the mirror held a woman who had not left her 9-year-old self in the shrubs. She looked at me the way deer look at cars. I said hello like a person who deserves to exist. She did not answer. I lifted my hand. She didn't. I didn't move. She did. She reached up and tugged the shower curtain down and it fell, and in my bathroom the curtain was still up, and my phone buzzed with a text from a number that looked like my mother's, but the last digit was a 3 instead of a 2. Still playing, it read. I turned the faucet on in my bathroom and water did not happen. In the mirror, water happened. It ran for exactly 19 seconds and then the handle turned itself off. I left the door open and backed away until the hallway became confident again. Next morning, there was damp around the baseboards where damp should not happen. The reverse place had leaked into the true one, or the true had finally admitted it was the reverse, or I was the only person in the building who carried towels like a superstition. At noon I went to the park with a thermos because ordinary is a strategy. I sat on the bench near the sycamore and drank coffee that had decided to be bitter. My father sat down on the other end like a stranger at a bus stop. He wore a tie for the benefit of people who think ties matter. His grin had learned humility, or the shape of it. He looked straight ahead like we were two commuters not making eye contact. He said, "You're doing it wrong." I said, "Good." He said, "You will outlast your friends, and then you will call me." I said, "I don't call, I count." He said, "Your mother taught you to freeze." I taught her that. Everyone learns. It doesn't matter. I said nothing. He said, "There's a door in your building that belongs to us. It will open for you soon. You will think you can walk it and buy yourself time. You can for a minute. Then the bill comes due." "No," I said. "Then I will tip." He laughed. This time it was human. He stood without looking at me and walked away into a version of the park the rest of us don't get to use. The note under my door that night was smaller, like paper shrinks when it's afraid. Don't argue with him. Make him late. Bring someone with a different heartbeat. I took the note to the laundry meeting and Mrs. Reynolds read it like a recipe. The night nurse nodded like doses were being adjusted. "Bring someone," she said, and looked at the teenager with the chipped nails and at the coin man and at me. Not like we were volunteers, like we were inventory. The college kids swallowed like pills. I thought of my mother. Of course I did. That's how daughters make bad plans. I texted her and she sent back a heart because she is still a person who believes in emojis, even where rules live. 9 o'clock. We met in the stairwell that bites. Mrs. Reynolds had her metronome in a tote bag that said volunteer in cheerful letters. The coin man held a plate. The teenager carried chalk and wrote wrong numbers on the risers as if the stairs needed homework. The night nurse listened at the railing and counted her own pulse and shook her head at its honesty. We didn't say names. We didn't say the goal out loud. We started the timers not in unison, and breathed like people trying to make a room forget it's a trap. The knot on the blueprint door opened without help. The air was quiet the way winter is quiet when it hovers over a lake and decides to be kind. The corridor ate sound, it didn't muffle it. I felt the hush hit the back of my throat. We stepped sideways, the wrong way. Half a step, then another. We kept to the rhythm of two machines disagreeing, a dryer cycling down while the building intake ramped up. Between those hums is freedom. The corridor held more doors than belong on our floor. One had a brass number that wanted to be a date. One had a peephole that blinked. One had a scratch that looked like someone learned to write a name and didn't like the look of it. We found the bathroom that wasn't. It opened into 3 bathrooms at once, mine. Mrs. Reynolds, the teenagers, overlapping like the calendar in a house that has too many birthdays. The curtain was up and down. The towels were folded and thrown. The mirror showed me and didn't. And in the mirror, my mother stood behind me. She didn't meet my eye. She looked at the shower head like it had told her a secret she wanted to believe. She spoke in the tone people use when they're reading instructions to themselves under their breath. If she answers, she pays. If she moves, she pays. If she listens, she pays. If she doesn't, she pays slower. I put my hand against the glass. It was warm and cold together. She said, "Clara," and I closed my eyes before the sound could touch me. We dragged the metronome's weight with our breathing. The night nurse hummed 2 notes too close to each other on purpose. The coin man dropped 1 quarter, then another, and the plate rang like a church that had forgotten what Sunday is. The mirror rippled, not shattered, not dramatic. It sighed like a lake giving back a borrowed stone. My mother looked up at last, not at me, and at where I would be if the corridor wanted to draw me. And she smiled without happiness, only relief. The same relief she flashed me at 9 when the game ended, and my legs were fine, and my wrists didn't have a new story to tell. She mouthed, "Good girl." Behind her, my father's grin blinked into existence like a slow neon sign. He wagged a finger at me the way men do when they think teasing is a birthright. The night nurse tapped the metronome. The teenager wrote a number on the mirror with her breath. Mrs. Reynolds moved her chair 6 inches and back, because she had brought it with her the way people bring talismans to doctor's appointments. The mirror exhaled. My mother's face blurred. The grin went thin, and then away. We stepped back into the stairwell. The door pretended to be a wall. Our building decided it could breathe again. The coin man sat on a stair and cried in a way no one would be embarrassed by. The teenager squeezed his knee like a family member, and then looked at me like I was a teacher and asked a question the class needed. "How long do we have?" she said. "Until they're bored," I said. That night I slept without dreaming, and woke with the taste of citrus like a warning. The jar on my shelf, the one that had no business being anything, had lowered. The liquid didn't touch the line. It stared at it like distance could be a plan. Mom texted me at 6 a.m. with a photo of the sycamore and a caption that said, "Coffee later?" I wrote, "Yes." She wrote back, 9. I wrote, "No." She wrote, "Good girl." All day I felt watched by someone who cares about numbers. The microwave counted out loud. The elevator decided floors like it had an audience. The pigeons on the roof beat their wings in patterns that spelled schedules in a language I never asked to learn. At 8:58, I sat on the floor by my door and tied my laces in knots that would want to be bows. At 8:59, I started my timer not on the minute, but on a memory. At 9, I listened for the stairwell. It didn't bite. It yawned. The bathroom door stayed a door. The window remembered the exact draft the landlord promised to fix last winter. I almost believed in luck. Then came the knock. 3, 9 seconds. 3, 9 seconds. 2, the wrong pattern. The keepers don't knock. They arrange. That's worse. But tonight, something played at being polite because it wanted me to feel rude if I didn't answer. I sat very still and let the knock happen to the door the way weather happens to old wood. After the last 2, a voice tried the peephole like a key. "Hey," it said friendly. "We saw your post." "What post?" "The one you made from the bathroom. The one with the dying battery. The one where you said if there's no edit, assume you're still here." I swallowed. The internet is a church I light candles in and never attend. I have posted exactly 1 story under a name that isn't a name. I did it on a night I believed in strangers. I forgot about it. Time didn't. "We just want to help," the voice said. "We're from the forum. We knock like this because it's not their pattern. Open up." I almost did. That's the point. I texted Mrs. Reynolds. She didn't read it because she doesn't take her phone to the laundry room at 9. I texted the night nurse. She typed, then stopped, then typed again, then nothing. I texted my mother and immediately regretted it because my mother believes in answering doors when someone says help. The peephole soothed me with an image of a hallway that matches mine, and a person-shaped absence in front of the door. The hall light had the decency to flicker. I whispered to myself like a child practicing a speech. Don't answer when love borrows other clothes. Don't answer when logic uses your first name. Don't answer when the internet knocks. The knock came again. 3. 9 seconds. 3. 9 seconds. 2. It said my name like it was telling me I existed. I stood, walked to the bathroom, opened the loop, stepped into the landing that is mine and not mine, turned left into the bathroom that shouldn't be there, and sat on the closed toilet lid to listen. The knock happened on the wrong side of the mirror now. 3. Pause. 3. Pause. 2. If you are from the forum, I said in my head, tell me the rule that matters. Silence like a crowd being quiet. Then, too quickly, too proud. They can't time what they can't hear. It's the line I say when I want to be brave. It's not the line you say when you need me to trust you. I breathed on the half beat. The faucet in the mirror turned itself on for 19 seconds and then off. The door at the end of the hallway that bites opened a centimeter and considered learning to be a throat. I stayed. I stayed until my ankles hurt because staying is a tax. At 9:27 the knock left. The hallway remembered it had neighbors. The building let its hum reassemble. The mirror sighed and showed me myself again, which was a little disappointing. I texted Mom, not tonight. She wrote back, good girl, and I hate how much those 2 words carry. You wanted more pages. I'm sorry there isn't more action. Action is a luxury horror doesn't always give you. Sometimes it only gives you waiting and tells you to make waiting look like movement. I'm giving you the little movements anyway, because maybe that's what gets counted. Tomorrow I'm meeting my mother in daylight somewhere public. A diner with bad pie that tastes like childhood if childhood had tipping rules. We'll talk about groceries and TV and weather, and I will ask what she did when she was 9, and she will say she hid, and I will say me too. At 9 I will sit on the floor with my laces knotted badly and listen to the stairwell breathe. If it bites, I will count. If it yawns, I will count longer. If the door opens that isn't on the blueprint, I will step sideways. Not forward, not back. I will carry a metronome in my pocket like a canary. I will bring the night nurse's hum in my throat. I will bring the coin man's quarters. I will bring the teenager's wrong numbers and the way her knee bounces. I will bring a heartbeat that isn't mine. And if something knocks, I will let it be weather. Not yet. I'm learning to be late, and to make lateness a place other people can stand in without being eaten. I met my mother in daylight because daylight lies kindly. The diner off County 12 serves coffee that tastes like decisions. The booths are cracked in the way vinyl cracks when people choose not to cry on it. A waitress called me hun and set down pie like it was a guardrail. We didn't say the words first. We made small talk we could surrender later. How's work? Fine. Weather's turning. Yeah. Then she put both hands around her mug like it could run away. When I was 9, she said, I had a sister, or I had a friend who was as close as the word will allow. Her name was Clara. The name lives in my mouth like a splinter. I used it when I taught you to hide because I needed my body to remember what happens when you don't. I felt the booth tilt, just a little, as if the floor had taken a breath. Your father made terms he didn't understand, she said. Men like him pretend they're negotiating when they're only taking dictation. He promised schedules he couldn't keep. They took Clara on a night I believed in bedtime. I've been making us late ever since. You trained me, I said. I taught you to be inconvenient, she said. It's the only defiance that doesn't demand applause. We ate pie that cooled too fast. She kept looking at the clock above the pie case the way you look at a dog you don't trust. When the second hand hiccuped and then remembered itself, she smiled in a way that wasn't happy, and I knew we'd jam something somewhere. At the door, she kissed my cheek and said 9 without saying 9. And I said no out loud, because love is not a schedule. When we split in the parking lot, the light on the diner sign blinked out the D so it read inner, and I took that as permission. At home, the building was polite. The stairwell didn't bite. The bathroom door behaved like a door in a house where people share chores. The window remembered breeze. I put the metronome in my pocket anyway. Hope doesn't keep you safe. Preparation buys you time. At 8:45, the laundry room filled with people who didn't introduce themselves because names are receipts. Mrs. Reynolds set a dozen small metronomes spinning at different speeds like a school of fish refusing a net. The coin man had a baggie of quarters from different states because he believes variety matters even when it doesn't. The teenager had chalk dust on her fingertips and eyes that knew every exit code. The night nurse brought a white noise machine she borrowed from pediatrics and an analog timer that ticks low like a cat. We didn't pray. We tuned. At 9, not on the dot, on our own beats, we started. The hum in the walls tried to gather us into a choir. We refused harmony. We clapped off beat on purpose. We let the washing machines end cycles at once, then unplugged them and plugged them back in wrong. The fluorescent lights flickered like they were learning Morse and forgetting it in the same moment. The corridor that isn't on the blueprint opened without fanfare, the way mouths open to yawn when they plan to bite. We stepped sideways, the wrong way, breathing between two machines that disagreed. The air cooled and warmed at once. The floor forgot voltage. The door marked quiet stood where doors go when they're tired of being instructions. I'd been here, but not like this, not with a crowd, not with a rhythm we wrote. He was waiting, of course. My father stood by a desk that wasn't a desk, more like a podium the world borrowed from a courthouse and then changed its mind. He wore the face strangers trust and the posture of men who own ladders. You made a club, he said, like a PTA for clocks. We're a clog, Mrs. Reynolds said without fear or patience. He grinned at her and it slid off like rain on oiled paper. I brought different heartbeats, I told him. You hate that. He shrugged. We don't hate anything, he said. We keep. It's the work. It's beautiful if you let it be. He gestured toward a scale that wanted to be a clock and a compass and a ledger, the thing from the plaza that remembered my skin. Be weighed, he said kindly. You'll sleep better. No, I said. I'll choose distribution. He raised one eyebrow like a man in a commercial for something that lies. You cannot choose, he said. Then why offer the scale, I said. He looked almost pleased. We pushed past him without touching. The teenager with the chalk drew quick wrong numbers on the floor where a mat wanted to be. The coin man dropped quarters on the plate at the precise wrong seconds. The night nurse ran her white noise machine and hummed two close notes. Mrs. Reynolds set all 12 metronomes on the podium and let them be stubborn. The room grew late. My father's smile thinned. You think chaos keeps you free, he said. It just makes you interesting. I walked to the mirror that held 3 bathrooms at once. Mrs. Reynolds, the teenagers, stacked like slides in a projector from a school that no longer exists. The glass felt warm and cold together. Behind my shoulder, my mother appeared like breath. She didn't talk. She waited. That's what mothers do when the cost is in the room. The door inside the glass, the one that opens when the building is feeling proud, unlatched. Not yet, I told myself. Not on their beat. I tapped the metronome in my pocket to a number I hate. I counted my breath on the half beat. I stepped wrong. The door in the mirror swung wider. Not for them, for me. My father's hand closed on my arm and didn't find it. He grabbed the version of me that lives where paperwork lives, and I let that go. He held air that looks like daughter on forms. He frowned like a man misplacing a receipt. The quiet room exhaled. The map on the wall redrew with a tremor. Somewhere a sprinkler stopped at the quarter turn, and then remembered it was supposed to make a circle and hated that it did. In the mirror, my mother put her palm to the glass. I matched it. The glass didn't break. It flexed. It gave like a chest after a sob. You always wanted me to come out, I said, and I'm telling you I won't. Not on their count. She mouthed, "Good girl," and turned her head to the side like she was listening for something better than instructions. Behind her, behind us, the door that isn't on blueprints opened into a hallway I recognized from once when I was very tired and the hospital forgot my name. It was a place you passed through without taking ownership. It loved me instantly, and with no memory. That's the love you want around these people. My father tried again. You can't live in truces, he said. They end. I said, so do schedules. He lifted a hand like a conductor. Somewhere far away, the street outside my building remembered it was 9 and tried to flash orange. The teenager clapped once exactly wrong. The coin man sighed on 8. The night nurse tapped the metronome with a nurse's pity and a bouncer's authority. Mrs. Reynolds dragged her chair 6 inches and back, and the sound broke like thin glass under a careful heel. The beacons didn't make it to my curtains. They pooled at the curb like syrup and sulked. The door in the mirror gave. I pulled my mother through a place that isn't like pulling. It's more like unthreading a sleeve from a jacket you borrowed when the weather lied. It took longer than it should have and hurt in the way good decisions hurt, quietly, at the root. She stumbled into the quiet room and smelled like the park. She didn't look at my father. She looked at me and put both hands on my face like she was reminding me I am made of bone. He watched us like a man at a zoo whose favorites have ruined his afternoon. He wasn't angry. He was clocking us. He was writing down our tactics. He was learning. We have to go, Mrs. Reynolds said. We backed out as a group, leaving metronomes ticking, quarters cooling on a plate, a white noise machine working a shift no one paid it for. The door to the quiet room considered us and, for once, didn't pretend to be a wall. It let us pass like a store that's closing but recognizes locals. In the stairwell, the air remembered us. The hum in the walls put itself back together. The hallway gained its bad lighting and its better intentions. In my apartment, we sat on the floor because chairs felt performative. The jar on my shelf had dropped below the line again. Not by much, by just enough to feel like a favor you didn't ask for. My mother drank water and held the glass like it was a hand. He'll come to the park, she said. I know. He'll wait for 9. I know. Don't be there. I won't. She smiled in that way that isn't happy. It's relief wearing her face. I slept with the window open and the blind up in case the night wanted to admit it had nothing to hide. It didn't knock. Morning came with the sound of a delivery truck pretending to need the curb. The day came on like forgiveness. I went to the park anyway, at noon, because rules are what you do when you don't trust your impulses. Noon is safe, the way winter is safe when it's honest. The sycamore looked like an old survivor who doesn't owe anyone a story. The bench gave me splinters because I deserve souvenirs. Squirrels argued. A jogger coughed like they were teaching their lungs a lesson. He sat down at the end of the bench like a weather front that got lost. You changed tactics, he said. You're not used to being told no, I said. He folded his hands like prayer as a party trick. You can't stop this, he said. You can make it expensive. You can make it late. You can make it boring. But you can't stop it. Me, Miché. Then, I will make it all of those, I said. He chuckled and looked out at kids using the playground in good faith. There's a door that will open for you now, he said. In your building, in every building. Walk it often. It will cost you the world remembering you. Not all at once, little things. The barista forgetting your regular. The mail carrier asking for your ID at the same address for 10 years. Your name will become a coat you have to keep putting on. You can't live like that forever. I can live like that longer than you prefer, I said. He nodded, like a gentleman yielding the sidewalk. Then we are finished here. No, I said. We are late here. He stood, smoothed his tie, and stepped into a version of the day where clocks respect him. It is not the same one I occupy. I went home through a neighborhood that had decided to look ordinary on purpose. The Hawaii sign reminded me to bring my bins in on time. I smiled at it like a person who has learned how to be rude kindly. At 9 that night, the corridor opened like a throat, and I didn't panic. I walked the quiet, not as a test, as a commute. I moved between hums. I tapped the metronome in my pocket to wrong numbers. I left quarters on strange shelves. I wrote a chalk 7 where a 9 belonged and breathed until the chalk looked unsure of itself. The keepers kept. That's their job. The routes ran. That's the physics. But the ledger lost minutes in the corners. We carved out into the math. Sometimes the bathroom loop still grabs me. Sometimes the window shows me a street with rules I don't accept. Sometimes the stairwell bites, and I bleed the small way that doesn't show on clothes. Sometimes I am not remembered by people who love me. Dear, for an hour, for a day, for longer than comfort allows. When that happens, I sit very still until the building forgets to keep me, and then I walk wrong until I find the room where love doesn't clap on the downbeat. You wanted a confession. Here it is. I did not beat them. I did not win. I learned to be late better than they like. I learned to walk where their beat is bored. I learned that love can be a schedule if you keep promising the same things. So now I promise different, and keep those too. If you hear your name at 9, count. If a door opens where no door lives, breathe between hums. If you smell oranges when there are none, choose a number you hate and make it your metronome. If you're looking for me, walk the quiet. If you can't find me, be late for me. I will be there, just after the count, exactly where the clocks can't hold.